The community of Caribbean nations, categorized as small island developing states, is continually exposed to the adverse effects of climate change. The mental health impacts of this issue are exacerbated due to the precariousness of life in this tropical region. This presentation will explore mental health within the Caribbean, specifically as it relates to coping with natural disasters in a cultural context. My interest in the psychological consequences of natural disasters in Caribbean culture was catalyzed by a distinct event which challenged my mental health. In pitch black darkness in a small wooden closet, while our house crumbled around us, I held my baby and toddler tightly, not knowing if we would survive the most terrifying night. For 8 straight hours, a catastrophic Category 5 hurricane wreaked havoc on our island, leaving us stranded in its aftermath with no access to clean water or food for a week. Overnight, our home, business, and belongings, our livelihood, and health were lost. After having been evacuated by helicopter and displaced to another country away from our support system, I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder and trauma-induced fibromyalgia, feeling as though I was living outside of my body. Acute stress, anxiety, depression, and PTSD have been documented in Caribbean countries as direct consequences of the impacts of weather-related events on mental health and well-being. In the wake of a disaster, I saw how people struggle to adjust to their new reality. Lost possessions, jobs, and even loved ones can take a crushing emotional, psychological toll. This collective trauma often pushes people past their breaking point, something too few recognize as a legitimate issue. I believe that mental health should be a major focus in the aftermath of natural disasters, both immediately and in the long run. The Caribbean region does not have the same disaster response capabilities as more developed mainland countries, leading to very difficult aftermath periods. The islands, due to their small size, isolated location, and vulnerability to climate impacts, have distinct vulnerabilities and needs. Their topography is vastly different, ranging from low-lying, flat or beach terrains to lush rainforests and volcanic mountains. To paint a picture of how small some of these countries are, we could drive across our island in just 1 hour. Many of these countries do not have international airports, making evacuation impossible in the event of natural disaster. Some storms also develop too quickly, what is locally referred to as rapid intensification. The anxiety related to natural disasters can be intergenerational if those who experience the events continue to carry the loss of trauma. Also, fears and worry from secondary stressors like concerns of waterborne illnesses, parasitic infections, food scarcity, and other potentially life-threatening challenges experienced in the aftermath remain stored in the memories of the people. There is also a vast difference in how urban versus rural people withstand aftermaths. While urban dwellers can be completely dependent on food rations from international humanitarian organizations, those living in small rural villages are accustomed to growing their food, but can no longer depend on their crops after they have been ravaged by the storm. Until humanitarian help reaches them, they are left actively searching for and foraging food from fallen fruit trees, a new normal way of living for survival. The link between food and water insecurity and mental health and well-being issues have been recognized. Inadequate nutrition or hydration can also lead to mood disturbances and an overall feeling of malaise. The limited disaster response capacities of small islands also include their mental health response. Caribbean people are disproportionately affected by climate change health impacts, yet mental health and well-being in this population typically go underreported. In the aftermath of Hurricane Maria, I witnessed the direct consequences natural disasters can have on survivors. Acute stress disorder is a type of mental distress that can occur in the first several weeks after a traumatic event, leading to varying symptoms including sleepless nights and nightmares, persistent worry, panic attacks, family conflict, flashbacks of the storm, chronic fatigue, and depression, to name a few. Emerging research is showing the impact of climate change on mental health. Weather events are linked to increased stress reactions, depression, anxiety, sleep disturbances, and suicidal ideations. I observed how even friends and family off the island were psychologically affected by witnessing the desolation of the catastrophic storm that struck our island, worrying and being cut off from loved ones for days. What I also saw from my experience of living through hurricane aftermath was that those with fewer resources, such as lower levels of social support and income, were only resilient to a certain point, after which they would become irreversibly injured or even die. I observed that low-income individuals and those without significant social support were especially prone to anxiety and depression after the storm, and even more so for individuals with pre-existing mental health struggles or addictions. Mental health in Caribbean nations is largely neglected due to a combination of factors such as socioeconomic conditions including poverty, income inequality, and unemployment, as well as the region's economy, which is largely structured around 2 to 3 key industries, having left mental health efforts underdeveloped. The region's diverse populations have also contributed to a vulnerability to mental health issues regardless of gender, age, race, ethnicity, or religion. On average, Caribbean countries allocate only 4.3% of their healthcare budgets to mental health. The Caribbean is renowned for its diverse mix of ethnicities of indigenous African, European, and Asian descent, making it one of the most multicultural places on Earth. Populations arrived in successive waves of voluntary or involuntary migration over 400 years ago. All of these cultures have left their mark on the region through traditions, food, music, and festivals, and forged an incredibly unique and united community. People value family and communal support above all else. Individuals put a great emphasis on the well-being of their community and contribute to their society in whatever way they can. Respect is highly prized and strong relationships are cherished, making the Caribbean a tightly knit and unified community. The psychological consequences of natural disasters are universal, though cultural factors can explain variability in post-disaster mental functioning. Collectivist cultures, such as the Caribbean region, promote cooperation as a means of working together more effectively. This stems from the group-oriented nature of the culture, which emphasizes the importance of communal goals over individual objectives. Collectivism may offer health benefits such as how the increased social support protects individuals from experiencing the negative effects of life stressors, potentially even aiding recovery from the trauma of surviving a natural disaster. This demonstrates the importance of social support systems. Even monkeys innately know to seek community. In 2017, the same storm that affected my family ravaged Puerto Rico. Hurricane Maria, the worst natural disaster ever to hit the island, left 3,000 dead and created a devastating mental health crisis. The same storm caused devastation to a population of rhesus macaques. The monkeys were found to have formed new social ties after the hurricane struck. Isolated monkeys exhibited an increased number of social connections post-storm as compared to before. Anxiety and panic disorders are universal, but their presentation, meaning and alleviation, can greatly vary across culture. Religious and spiritual coping is a productive way of dealing with trauma, loss, and other hardships. While religion is globally a powerful influence in many people's lives, research has pointed to its particularly strong presence in Caribbean Blacks, African Americans, and Dominicans. Research indicates positive relation to religious coping can be associated with lower levels of PTSD, depressive symptoms, and greater optimism, personal growth, and life satisfaction. One study showed that individuals were alleviated by religious traditions and healers while coping with loss following a natural disaster. Other findings demonstrated that positive religious coping and having a higher purpose in life predicted lower psychological distress in survivors. Humans are innately endowed with emotions, yet how to express and manage them is largely determined by culture. Stigma, disengagement, and inadequate monitoring have caused mental health and well-being issues to be routinely disregarded in the Caribbean. Mental illness stigma was found to be widespread across all Caribbean islands. The stigma comes from a variety of different cultural and historical reasons, often rooted in religion and spirituality. Mental health and well-being challenges are often wrongly seen as punishment for a family or the result of an individual's sins. There is also a lack of mental health professionals, raising positive awareness about the support available. The effectiveness of mental health and well-being interventions for Caribbean people is largely misunderstood, compounded by the lasting effects of colonial and post-colonial ideals of mental health assessment, diagnosis, and treatment. Like much of the New World, the Caribbean regions were colonized and developed by outside European powers, and at the center of it was the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. This crime against humanity had serious implications for the region. Historical contexts such as slavery and disparities in social, economic, and educational opportunities continue to impact the mental health of Caribbean people. These individuals have, however, demonstrated resilience in the face of adversity. Protective factors such as strong family, community, and religious networks have been shown to lead to improved psychological well-being. We humans are social creatures that rely on one another to function and succeed. We cannot thrive alone. While there are many benefits to the community support of collectivism that acts as a buffer and protection to mental health after natural disasters, what happens when there is displacement and the people are removed from their support systems, and even so displaced to individualistic cultures? Similar to refugees, those displaced by natural disasters face problems and are on the front line of the climate change emergency. Migration that is forced due to traumatic experiences such as profound losses or upheavals often results in higher rates of PTSD, depression, and anxiety than those who choose to migrate voluntarily. Acculturation, cultural modification, and adaptation can cause daunting mental health challenges for those who are involuntarily displaced from their home countries. A study discovered many indicators of trauma-related issues amongst adults who experienced the Hurricane Maria-related emergency in Puerto Rico, though it was noted that when relocated to Florida, a higher diagnosis rate for PTSD was found for those Puerto Rican evacuees. Displaced people are often left without any social support, caseworkers, mental health programs, or insurance, and often are fully dependent on their will to survive and resilience. Post-migration factors such as isolation from family and friends, having lost projects, inability to establish a home or run a business, and disruption in meaningful activity have been shown to cause displaced migrants to experience traumatic stress reactions, emotional distress, and physical health issues. Additionally, the impact of post-disaster displacement on the mental health and well-being of children is far-reaching. Loss of routine and a feeling of insecurity can be catalysts of harm. Such displacement takes its toll by disturbing familiar school environments, teachers, and the potential to learn and grow with joy and fulfillment. Classic research has linked social support to health, with individuals suffering the highest mortality rate when having few social ties. Migration, especially when forced, can be a highly stressful experience. Lack of social support, poor health systems, insufficient livelihoods, economic hardship, and limited access to housing, services, and healthcare have been shown to potentially lead to reduced self-esteem, depression, phobias, and schizophrenia. According to local anecdotes, the psychosocial impacts of forced migration can span generations. Research highlights the importance of land to culture and identity, both for mental health and well-being. This is because the loss of place, attachment, ancestral connections, and identities can lead to eroded belief systems, family ties, as well as local and cultural knowledge. The ongoing battle against social stigma and taboo about mental health in the Caribbean is a challenge. It is widely recognized that providing basic services and security are essential foundational elements of post-disaster psychosocial support. More disaster mental health assessments could help gain crucial insight into the mental impacts of climate change and promote mental health acceptance. This could in turn better prepare the people for potential climate threats. Traditional clinical psychology models are valuable tools, yet a community-based approach can be a powerful and effective alternative in developing countries where socioeconomic obstacles pose a challenge and mental health resources are often scarce. Community psychology sees healing as stemming from the strengths and resources of the community, providing a promising way of understanding and assisting those who are suffering from psychological distress in diverse cultures, including displaced migrants. A promising pilot program conducted in Grenada demonstrated the potential of providing training in post-disaster mental health competencies to local healthcare providers. The integrated approach was designed to equip them with the skills to address individual and community mental health needs in the aftermath of a disaster. This helped those struggling with trauma-induced mental health challenges to receive ongoing care even after the disaster was over. The Grenada Experience program demonstrated the feasibility to quickly and cost-effectively equip healthcare professionals in smaller Caribbean nations with proper training through the use of local educators. Caribbean nations are prioritizing resilience to climate change impacts, such as extreme weather events, by creating sustainable water, food, and energy systems and addressing the mental health impacts of natural disasters. Preparedness, response, and recovery plans must be developed to protect communities from direct physical, economic, and environmental damage, while equipping them to address climate impacts in a safe, effective, and culturally appropriate manner.